GMI Cloud's CEO and founder, Alex Yi. Welcome. Hikari Senju, CEO and founder of Omneky. Cheng, managing partner, Millennium New Horizons. John-Hoon, manager of research scientist, MediaTek Research. And least but not last, Christopher Lang, CEO and co-founder of Aitomatic. And Alex, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Shane. Let's start by playing a game. I want to understand how many of you have already been using AI in your daily life? Can you raise your hand? Okay, some people have already used AI. What about, let's spice things up. Have you guys tried to fine-tune your own AI? No? Okay, okay, that's great. How about using an open source model in your development process or daily lives? Oh, wow, okay, that's great. So we have some folks that have already been using that, so that's amazing. So I'd like to introduce myself a little bit more and about our company. So GMI, what does GMI stand for? It stands for General Machine Intelligence, General Machine Intelligence Cloud. All right, so we're here to build the infrastructure for the AI, Gen AI and LLM world. Right, so we're here to enable anyone to deploy AI with one click. Right, so a one-click deployment similar to how you use Wix to build a website. Right, so we want to abstract out all the difficulties for anyone to use and deploy AI using our H100 compute and future compute. And we'll also provide container services on open source models like Llama and Mistral and future API services as well to enable anyone to deploy AI very, very quickly. And with that, I'd like to start.
Before we get there, let the announcement finish.
True.
I think it requires another introduction. Yes. Great. So I think maybe 2 more dozens of people will show up after that. But Alex, I think you should start again and talk a little bit about GMI Cloud, especially what your position is with regards to supporting Taiwan ecosystem and international ecosystem.
Of course, of course. So GMI Cloud is building the infrastructure for the future, right? We enable anyone to deploy AI. Whether you're a founder that wants to deploy AI, we abstract out all the difficulty. We handle all the infrastructure for anyone to deploy very easily. Or you're an enterprise that doesn't know or want to figure out which model to deploy, what applications to use on AI, then we're here to help you to deploy that as to buying your own GPUs, figure out the infrastructure, and figuring out which model and which applications to use. Right, so that is the model and the vision of GMI Cloud. And with that said, today's topics about sovereign AI and how it's applied to Taiwan. And I think the most important thing is, first we have to define what does it mean of sovereign AI, right? In my understanding, I think sovereign AI applies to a localized data sets. I think that's what it means. Nowadays, in the world, you probably hear a lot about digital sovereignty or data sovereignty, data security issues by US, China, or elsewhere, everywhere in the world. And I think it's very important for a country or companies or industries or subsectors or even personal to own their own data. That's my definition of sovereign AI. I'd like to open up to the panelists and first introduce yourself and then kind of what's your definition of sovereign AI?
Hello, I'm Hikari Senju, the founder and CEO of Omneky. Omneky generates personalized ads at scale. We integrate with in all the omni-channel ad platforms, ingest insights from the ad platforms, and also fine-tune the model on the customer's brand to generate on-brand, personalized advertising content to help businesses scale their marketing and their brand experiences. And personalization is a key point here, because I think data sovereignty, AI sovereignty, and then personalization are very in line. We have customers in the Philippines or in Bangladesh, and we need to create ads in Tagalog or create ads in Bangla. And the models today, the generic open source models today, or even the GPT models today, just aren't very good at generating localized content. And so you need a model that's localized for different markets to generate content that understands the cultural nuances of that country, so it's more effective. And also, I think at a larger trend when it comes to AI sovereignty or data sovereignty, I think the future is going in that direction. Companies are learning about the value of their data. It used to be, right? The trend used to be in the software. It used to be you would sell software for data, right? That was the trade. So if you're a SaaS company, you provide a company software, and then in return, that company will provide you data. But now companies are realizing the value of their data, and so what I think the future probably is the company will deploy a model locally for that region or for that country or for that enterprise, and the customer keeps their data. And that's a trend we're seeing across enterprise. That's a trend we're seeing across countries. And I think so that's, in my mind, when someone says data sovereignty or AI sovereignty, that's just kind of, it seems to be the trend going forward in general.
Hi, everyone. Ray Cheng, managing partner of Millennium Horizons. I run a venture firm based out of New York and Palo Alto. We have been investors in some of the leading Gen AI companies, such as CoreWeave, Mistral, and my firm from back in the days have backed companies such as Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Zappos, Spotify, Pinterest, and many others. As an international investor, having witnessed this whole growth of AI and generative AI trends, sovereign AI is one of the most interesting terms because I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this phrase called data is the new oil. Well, now AI is almost like the new electricity. So if you are a government or government official and you need to figure out how to make your country more productive, it is almost similar to like how do you actually regulate resources, allocate it to the mass, and have everyone being able to access this utility. One thing that's interesting to me is what this means is it spells a lot of opportunities for big, small companies and also individuals, because all of a sudden, your government is providing you with a certain set of utilities to work with. So figuring out what this actually means, defining the KPIs, the framework, I think a lot of people are still in the process of going through that exercise, including the US. So happy to share more as we go through the panel.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, this is Bo Jin, manager of research scientist in MediaTek Research. And yeah, MediaTek Research, I think, was known as a top 5 chip design company in the world. And yeah, in 2018, MediaTek launched a research center, MediaTek Research, to push the edge research in AI development. I think that's a quite important thing for MediaTek Research. Currently, MediaTek Research put much effort on developing our own large language models. I think before the ChatGPT, we foresee the importance of the development of large language models. I think we start early in Taiwan, and so regarding the sovereign AI, and I think it means different things to different people. But we at MediaTek Research, we are focusing on response to the limitations of current AI landscape. The current AI landscape was largely dominated by tech giants. Their large language models are often closed sourced, or sometimes they localize the data. So we are focusing on meet the unique needs in Taiwanese market that haven't been addressed by the dominant giants. So for example, in Taiwan industry, there is a clear need of on-premise solutions of leveraging AI, because many of Taiwan industries have proprietary data, and we prefer not to share data with the tech giants like the OpenAI and then Microsoft. So again, we focusing on created innovative solutions to leveraging AI and to meet the unique need in Taiwan, and that's our perspective of sovereign AI. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
How many people here use Gmail? Okay, still. So I'd like to introduce me as 20 years ago being the first the engineering director that helped launch Gmail. And as you know, Gmail was the first, as you may know, Gmail was the first large-scale user application of machine learning for spam filtering, even to this day. Of course, the technology underneath that has evolved a lot over the years, but I'm proud to say that Gmail is one of the best spam filter by a lot of measures. It was also the first application of large-scale sort of machine learning of your user data. So I think the term data sovereignty dates back about 20 years. Today, I'm the CEO of a company called Aitomatic, and strictly, very simply, we do what we call industrial AI. And that's actually a very rare thing in America. We're in Silicon Valley. My previous role, after Google and another startup, I ran industrial AI for Panasonic out of Osaka. And that was sort of my return to the physical world, right? The other panelists here have spoken a lot about the dominance of the Googles and the Metas and the OpenAI in that very digital space. But we are now actually back to physical space. That's a very good thing. There's a reindustrialization of America, for example. And so the term AI sovereignty, and we had the discussion preparing this, to me it has the following meanings, and it would be sort of dishonest to work around the meaning of sovereignty is the ability for a jurisdiction, for a country, right, to essentially control its own destiny, to make its own laws with respect to data and privacy and so on. And the reason AI sovereignty as a term comes up a lot is because the perceived power of this generative AI that we're seeing, with the launch of ChatGPT, and at the same time also the desire to control it, across borders and so on. So countries and jurisdictions are saying, no, we want to be able to control our own data, our own knowledge, and essentially our own models. Otherwise, we should be sharing models, right? Which should be open. So in another role, I am also one of the leaders on something called the AI Alliance, right? And that resonates a lot with this AI independence, AI sovereignty concept, where we want to motivate open development, open science, right? Startups, which is where we are today. Today, there would be very few startups possible without starting with an open source set of foundations. And believe it or not, there are forces in the world for very sincere reasons that want to actually close that down, to control it, to manage it, to prevent others from getting access to it. But in the process of doing so, will also have serious collateral damage to the spirit of innovation, right? Because a startup like Aitomatic, certainly, if you think about your startups and so on, you depend very much on open innovation. So the idea of AI sovereignty goes back to that sense of control and management. And in the context of industrial AI, we are involved in building models that are higher level than what you think of as very powerful today in terms of OpenAI or Gemini and other models. I call them generic models. Industries here, right in Taiwan and also Japan, where I spent 5 years as part of Panasonic, care very much about the layers above that. For example, the semiconductor industry model or the IC design model. And then on top of that, companies want to inject, and I want to distinguish the word data versus knowledge, right? Data is the new oil, but oil has to be refined. And in fact, for the first time, we are able to inject knowledge directly into these models, right? A company like MediaTek can take its years of experience in IC design and not have to go all the way down to the bits and bytes level, but actually instruct our machines, our models now to say, I want you to know something about my IC design secrets, all right? Because that's my competitive advantage. And so when companies do that, they want to make sure that their secrets, their proprietary knowledge doesn't leak out to others. So the idea of AI sovereignty is also about the sovereignty of their own knowledge. So that's my perspective on the term.
Thank you, Chris. I think we have gone to the second question already, kind of on examples of sovereign AI. And so thank you everyone for their definition of sovereign AI. I think in summary, it's almost like owning your own personal data, right? For example, you don't want your text messages to be used by larger corporations to do their model training to sell you more ads or sell you more products, right? Similar to companies, they don't want their trade secrets, their manufacturing secrets, their weightings to giving out to other competitors, for example. So I think it's localization of data, owning that data for basically creating almost like an AI agent for yourself, right? So on the second question, right, so I would like to open up for the panelists on the examples of sovereign AI. And then how is that impacting on the development, whether it's positively or negatively. And we'll start with Hikari.
Yeah. So we're seeing examples of sovereign AI today. I think more broadly on this, well, in many different ways of how you define sovereign AI. I think definitely on the national level, we're seeing SoftBank for Japan or Tata or in Europe, work on their own domestic LLMs. And you also have a lot of local companies in each of these, industrial companies at each of these countries working on building their own localized LLMs. And I think that is very important. Kind of going back to the earlier example I shared, which is, GPT is really bad at generating for languages outside of English, and in fact, we have customers in Japan, for example, that use ChatGPT and they try to have a conversation with it, and it doesn't seem to understand any of the cultural nuances of Japan, and that is ultimately an inferior product. And ultimately, we live in a market system where superior products win, and so there's a market demand for sovereign AI, for localized AI, for AI that's more aware of the various intricacies of a company or of a country. What isn't? What isn't sovereign AI, right? Sovereign AI is not sovereign AI would be something along the lines of this ChatGPT would be non-sovereign AI. And then on that flip side, then what is sovereign AI would be examples of even deploying a localized LLM model, right? If you deploy Llama 3 on your model and fine-tune it on your own data to create a bespoke outcome for your business, you could argue that that is some form of data sovereignty or AI sovereignty, because you're not sending that data to some third party. You're keeping that data on-prem or in your own cloud, and then extracting value yourself from that data. And so I do think that is genuinely the trend. This trading of software for data is probably not going to be the future. And companies will increasingly, especially now with software being completely commoditized, you can generate software now for negligible costs with generative AI. That is no longer where there's value. So you don't need to make that trade anymore. And now that you can have AI generate that software, you can keep that data yourself and then better monetize it and actually ultimately build a superior product for your customers and for your markets that way. And so I think this is ultimately why this AI sovereignty, data sovereignty win out in the market ecosystem, just because it creates a better product.
Thank you. Thank you. And Ho-Chen, do you want to explain on how you think about sovereign AI and how you deploy that, perhaps with context of MediaTek, or how do you define it?
So yeah, I would like to share a story about the practical example of the MediaTek leverage of the AI service. So yeah, we have a AI service framework called DaVinci and Dage in Chinese. I think currently you can see that appears in some newspapers, magazines. Yeah, and why we developed the DaVinci, and actually we in the companies in like MediaTek, we have to deal with lots of proprietary data and across departments, across regions, and also across some internal databases. All of those should be proprietary. Current dominant AI service could not fit the need directly, and also we cannot just give our employees the ChatGPT and the Copilot. It's not enough. We have much more tasks. Chip design, system design, coding, and also we have the customer service. We have that, and some issue checking. So we need more like more a framework, more like just a chatbot. So that's why we built DaVinci. And in the past year, DaVinci has been used by over 20,000 employees in MediaTek, and the employees upon that even developed like 500 of applications upon the DaVinci systems. Actually we didn't anticipate that before. So I think that's quite an example that the MediaTek use AI, and we have I think key takeaway for everyone is to please just start using AI right now and don't wait. And you won't see all the possibilities until you start exploring that. And also, using AI in one way and often leads to the exploring the new way to leveraging AI. So that's our experience. And that's it.
Thank you. So, training a model or training an AI model, it's kind of like raising a kid, right? So it depends on what information you feed them, like what environment to imbue them into, right? Just like GPT won't know, well, this is going to be a heated argument. If you ask like a Taiwanese guy, what's your favorite beef noodle shop, right? If you ask GPT, they won't know because it doesn't have the information for all the available beef noodle shop in Taiwan, right? So a localized model will be important, right? You can simply upload all the available noodle shop, all the reviews, right, on Yelp in Taiwan, right, to the model, right? So that's why it's very important to localize that. If you ask a GPT to create a tangshi, for example, it will be difficult because it doesn't have the context or the logic of how tangshi work, right? So I think it's very important for each sovereign state or countries or companies, right, to create its own localized model because it's like back to the example of raising a kid, right? It's the environment that the information that you feed them, the output will be kind of generated from that, right? So each model will have its own bias. So it's very important to take ownership of that. Okay. And so moving on to the third question, right? It's on the opportunities and impact of the sovereign AI, right? So how do companies and investors benefit from the sovereign AI deployment? Because it looks like it will be a lot of localized AI, almost like a redundancy of each system, right? And so how do companies or investments will be impacted? And we'll start with Christopher with this question.
Yeah, that's a great question because we all want to benefit, right? The way I think about it, and I'll give some examples, is you can think of it as things that can be given to you or things that can be taken away from you. And this is how countries and companies are thinking about this. I mentioned earlier about the idea of sovereign AI as applies to your knowledge. Your knowledge, your company's knowledge should be sovereign to you, meaning if you want to share it with me, you can, but if you don't want to, you should be able to do that as well. So it's very important to understand that as powerful as LLMs are, they are not everything. It's very important to understand that because the conversations, if they revolve only around these large models, is leaving out a very important upper layer of value. And you're going to see this more and more over the next 12 to 18 months. There's two vertical stacks that are being built. One is what I mentioned already, which is the specialized knowledge layers above the generics. It is physically, digitally impossible for Microsoft to know everything that MediaTek has, right, or Panasonic knows about its own industry. And so there's going to be a stack of these models, right? Just like the rest of how we've done software in history. Things get more and more specialized, and the structure is that we build one on top of the other. So there's a foundation, so we don't have to redo all the R&D. So the benefits to companies, and this is why very soon we'll be announcing a semiconductor model based on an open source model such as Llama 3. We don't have to go from scratch and build a generic model, but we can add specialized knowledge about the physics and the chemistry of semiconductors. When I say dichlorosilane, you know, probably a GPT-4 doesn't quite understand that, doesn't really know how I use it in my semiconductor process. So the benefits of building on this stack and getting to more and more specialized knowledge, you know, is part of the sovereign AI. The other aspect about there's another stack being built, which is what I call the planning and the reasoning layer above LLMs. We don't have time in this panel, but I'm going to leave you with this thought that I'm going to say LLMs cannot plan and they cannot reason. Okay, we can debate that after the fact if you like. So as you build the planning and reasoning layer, there's also specialized knowledge. You know, when I solve a field engineering problem for refrigeration, that is a very different set of knowledge from doing process optimization for TSMC semiconductors. Those layers of planning and reasoning are also being built. And again, there's a lot of economic value to be created. Imagine if you're in the IC design, how many people are related to the IC industry here? You're all software. Okay. And that's good because the hardware industry, the IC design industry today, each loop takes 6 months minimum, right? And a lot of that is waiting for humans to essentially verify one thing after another. If we can apply this specialized AI to apply this human knowledge to this, a friend of mine, CTO, founder of a company called MaxLinear, which is what I call the last successful IC design company in the US, he sees AI, generative AI, as potentially existential for IC design company. The one that figure out how to apply all of their design knowledge into a model, into a system that has planning and reasoning, will probably clean up the industry, right? So I think that's significant.
Thank you. And then this is like a industrial specific application specialization of different knowledge. I would love to hear from Ray on the investor perspective, investing in global companies like Mistral and European model, CoreWeave on infrastructure in the US, right? How is that applicable to kind of your investment thesis across the world?
So the first thing to say is it's actually very exciting. It's very exciting because all of us here now have a chance to actually win a piece of the pie. Starting with the basic concept of language. Today, as an example, there's no good model for Korean, Japanese, Thai, let alone like some other languages. And that alone itself creates an opportunity for local champions to be built, or for local companies to partner with some of the leading companies to build something meaningful and interesting. When we think about looking at startup these days, instead of just thinking about your application and what's your sales pipeline and how much revenue you're going to do, we also ask ourselves one question, which is there dual use? So what is dual use? Dual use means that as a company, you can actually address both the public sector and the private sector. So all of a sudden, instead of having just one set of customers, you can also think about like, oh, can I also sell to a government? For startups, what I find interesting is all of a sudden, it makes government contracting a necessary skill set. For the longest time, a lot of people don't really like investing in defense contractors because they feel like, oh, I'm just counting on the government budget cycles, and usually defense contractors trade at like 1 to 2 times revenue. Today is different. Today, I think government becomes a big sources of budgets and ideas and actually needs. So from that perspective, I would encourage all startups to really think a lot harder about your sales and marketing team. What does it take for you to actually sell to a government organization? And whether you have the right skill set, the profile, the security posture, certification to accomplish that.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Christopher. So in quick summary, right, it's specialization of knowledge, and then having kind of different data silos for different applications, whether it's for sovereign state, for companies to build, right? Just on the language context, right, it's not just like an LLM that gives you an answer in localized language, but application on top would be kind of in different formats, right? Maybe it's video-based, maybe it's voice-based, right? For example, a instant voice-to-voice transfer on voice-to-voice translation on what Ray was talking about, for example. Maybe it's used for diplomat purpose, on government purpose, for say Japanese to Chinese or vice versa, right? This can also be used in say call center, right? Dual purpose again, right? Or used for streaming, because say a streamer is only speaking in Chinese or localized language, but Chinese I think is 18% the world's language, right? There's French, there's Spanish, English, whatnot, right? And so instant translate that to other languages with AI to apply lip sync and whatnot will be the application that sits on top of just LLM. But LLM is kind of the fundamental building block, right? That's the base knowledge pool that you need to have. And so there's multiple applications that you can build on top of that. Okay. And so I think this, the next question is going to be very, very interesting. So fast forward to 5-10 years. What do you think the world would look like with respect to AI? And we'll start with Po-Chen with this question.
Yeah, so look forward to 5 and 10 years. I think we agree that AI, the world will view AI like the gas, oil, electricity, like these natural resources. Because as we think AI would be a driving force of the economical, technological progress in the world. Running AI requires, we think requires 4 key elements. We need data and computing power, and still need some human talents and monetization. So I think it's quite challenging for smaller entities to survive in that kind of future. What do we refer to as the small entities? I think we can give some examples. Like Finland. We take Finland as example. Finland's GDP is roughly the same as Google's revenue. And Finland just launched a supercomputer center, I think last year, and it has over 550 petaflops of computing powers. Actually, it's still small related to the dominant giants in the world. And how about Taiwan? Taiwan has 4 times populations of Finland, and Taiwan's GDP is larger than Meta, Google, and Microsoft combined. But our supercomputer center is for now is about half size of the Finland's that I just mentioned. It's quite small, not enough, and so I think in the future the key is collaboration. So like in the panels today, GMI provides the best compute in Taiwan, I think, and MediaTek, we have top human talents, and we have some experience of developing AI, and like Aitomatic, and it handles the monetization towards enterprises. So, I think if we can reach that kind of collaboration, and we, such as a kind of smaller entities, can compete with the large giants. So I think the future. To sum up, I think in the future the key is to collaborate.
Thank you, thank you. And we'll start with Christopher as well to share with
future.
us on what do you think about AI in 5-10 years? What would the world look like?
The future requires for me to come from the future. Do you want the pessimistic version or the optimistic version, or both?
I think my bias default setting is more on the optimistic side.
All right, cool. Me too. So let's get the pessimistic possibility out of the way, but with the view that the optimistic version will prevail, right? Because we have to be, we need to be optimists, but we must not be naive, right? So rational optimist is the way to go. There's a pessimistic potential future. What Pushan refers to, when he compares Taiwan, Finland, and the large companies and so on. If you think about it, that comparison had never had to be made before. Why are we making that comparison? We're making that comparison because of deglobalization, right? Because of balkanization of things. Everybody feels like they need to build their own thing, right? There was a time, and I hope there will be a time again, when we feel like we can leverage each other, right? They say, okay, I don't really need to have my own system, right? I can build on top of that. So there's this future where 5 years from now, there's this increasing duplication, this increasing deglobalization, and everybody feels for their rational reasons, just like Kishida-san, the government in Japan, right after Sam Altman visited, we had a meeting there in April 2023, where immediately Japan updated its AI national strategy. It already had one, but it was one of the sort of the old technology view. But the new one says Japan needs to develop its own the foundation models, so that so that part was not written in English, but it was so that it cannot be taken away from Japan. So that's sort of my concern about this future. But I believe the future, our better angels will win out, right? It's kind of like we always finally do the right thing after all the alternatives have been tried. And so I think AI, generative AI, the technology view is that it's the same pattern. It's always bigger and smaller than you think, right? So I'm old enough to be around as an adult already, at the first wave of the internet. And people were saying, this is crazy. I mean, I have my fax. It can send real-time images, and you're just trying to send a few pieces of text around. So they were right, but then it turns out the internet wasn't just about sending images around. So whatever you think about LLMs today, I bet you at least half the audience, if not more, I think you overestimate the powers of LLM. Okay, they're not, they're not all that. Right? But on the other hand, AI itself, LLMs, right, large language models, and the next generation of models. So for example, transformers, as some of you may know, are actually going to be outdated very soon, within 12 months, right? The recurrent architectures are coming back because computing powers are capable of affording those computational requirements again. So as we sort of increase our computational page, the current architecture will sort of give way. They will become a lot more powerful. What I mentioned earlier, the ability to plan and reason, will actually be applied into this physical world that I mentioned, the industrial world. And so finally, my big optimism is that, and I don't have time to talk through it, all of the pent-up innovation in the industrial world, which Taiwan is part of, which Japan is part of, with a lot of Asia, countries that are still making things, I'm here to tell you that all of the digital innovations that have been the beneficiaries, mostly of digitalized countries, with generative AI, they are coming to the physical world. And you're going to see this transformation of this $25 trillion physical industry maybe multiplied by a factor of 10 of 100. And I'm so excited to be part of that future.
Thank you, Christopher. And Ray, do you want to talk about how you view 5 to 10 years, especially on so many companies that you invested in?
So I think the bet, okay, the most interesting bet that I have with all my friends is when is AGI coming? So what's AGI, right? General intelligence, meaning the computer smarter than you and I sitting here, they can do more than you and I doing. The most optimistic people from DeepMind I've heard, they say 5 years. The least optimistic people I've heard from DeepMind, 10 years. So it's coming. Now what this means is if you think about the concept of AI being used in a task, you can actually think about this from a digital format. So replacing what you and I do day to day on the phone, on a computer, controlling something from an interface perspective. And then there's also the physical format, which is a little bit similar to what Christopher's talked about. In the physical format, I'm sure a lot of you are aware that Tesla has already made robots running around in the factories called the Optimus. The thing that is scary to me is that these robots are now working really well. They are walking all terrain, they are handling tasks really well, they can understand basic instructions. But for Tesla to get to where they are today, it took quite some time. The physical world of physical agents, artificial general intelligence, is probably much harder than what most people are thinking. From my interaction with some of the leading LM companies, a lot of them don't even want to really touch that yet because it's just a different level of data, different level of training. Think about language. Language is all structured, so that's easy. But when it comes to physical, nothing is really structured. Another example would be autonomous driving. I think we are technically in year 15 or maybe 20 of autonomous vehicle development. Still, most cars don't really know how to drive themselves in any terrain and environment. So because of that, I'm optimistic about the future. I also am cautious about how this is going to go. But over time, I do believe we'll all save a lot of energy and time because the agent's going to do the task for us. And maybe there's more time for movies and games.
Thank you. Thank you, Ray. And Hikari?
Yeah, so where are we today? We have these generalized large language models. They've all kind of reached parity. Claude, GPT, because they're all trained on about the same open 1.5 trillion tokens on the open web. Well, there's about 100 times amount of those tokens that exist in private databases, within countries. So we're going to see the rise of data sovereignty, AI sovereignty, that best harnesses this data for localized use cases. The other thing that's going to happen in the near term is there's currently a lot of issues with the model architecture today, right? As Chris mentioned, transformers and GPUs happen to be very good at generating, predicting, inferencing, but inferencing is nowhere near good enough today, right? It hallucinates, it's very expensive, and it's not reliable. But once some of these technical hurdles regarding the architecture of GPUs and transformers or whatever comes afterwards is figured out, then we're going to see the rise of agents. And agents are going to harness localized data, on-prem data, private data, national data to better execute against a certain goal. And when that happens, and when the world is now dominated mostly by agents and potentially robots as well, we'll probably see a decrease or kind of the decline of software. Because a lot of software today is designed for humans. They're designed for human agents, right? A salesperson uses a software for powering their sales workflows. But if it's an agent that's utilizing the data, and then the software doesn't need to be designed for a human, and it has to just work for the agent, in which case then the need for that software disappears. And so we'll probably see a decline of software and the rise of these autonomous agents, both virtually and in the physical world. And then at that point, I think now going into like 10 years, there was going to be a massive advantage in localizing these agents to be very quick, right? So I think there may be some centralization of these agents in a certain database so that the agents are co-located so they can interact with each other very quickly. And there may be some kind of a scale effect in terms of co-locating agents together to increase the frequency of transactions and lower the latency of transactions amongst agents. And so that is a possible world in, I would say, maybe a 10-year time frame. But that, 10 years is really hard to predict. So I think it can go in many directions.
Thank you, Hikari. I just want to touch on what Christopher is saying. I think the current LLM isn't that scary. It's still very limited. It gives you, it's summarized really well, but it doesn't execute. So I think like my prediction is the next phase is an actionable LLM, right? It not just gives you an information, but actually does the action for you. For example, you don't want to ask what is the best noodle soup, but order me the best noodle soup to me, right? So that's integration with the physical world, right? So you still need a physical item to interact with. I think that will be the next, I would say, maybe not 10 years, but in the next 2-3 years will happen. And let's bring this back to the context of Taiwan, right? I think we can all agree that AI is here for to stay, and then people who are not utilizing AI will be replaced by someone or company. It will be replaced by companies that utilize AI well, right? And I think Taiwan has a very, very strong advantage in hardware. We can all agree to that. I think 20 years ago, Intel has famously quoted, Intel within, right? I think it's more like Taiwan within. Everything is, all the components built in Taiwan. TSMC designed, manufactured the chipsets, and then all the assemblies happen in Taiwan, right? Till this day, right? We still remain on the OEM world. We are the Robin to Batman, right? We're supporting basically with the arms dealer for all the world that's happening today. But I would encourage us to leverage AI, adding software on top of the product, right? So we're selling products right now, items by items, counting margins, right? But I would like to encourage, I think, everyone to start utilizing AI into their products, right? So you're not just selling physical items, but adding services on top, right? Maybe adding a software application, and then interacting with the physical world, because I think everyone's touched on interacting with physical world. And guess what? The physical world, you still need a media to do so, right? Maybe through camera module, maybe through AirPods, right? Maybe to some sort of iPhone or something, right? To interact with, and so, or robots, right? Or cars. So I think this physical items is Taiwan's strength. And so I think the future would be kind of how we collaborate, right? We have to take control of this technology and utilize that well, applying to the advantage that Taiwan has. And okay, thank you for everyone for coming. And we'll start, I guess we still have a couple minutes left. We'll open up for a quick QA if you have any questions for us.
Hi, this is Eddie. I'm a venture capitalist. I have a question for Ray. I know you're also an investor for CoreWeave, and also GMI is also one of the big APAC computing power provider. So what's your major thesis or investment while watching this kind of company? You think the big will getting bigger, or is there any opportunities that GMI can take advantage of in APAC?
Good news, everyone's going to get bigger because every one of you will just use more and more AI. So I feel pretty positive about that. Getting to the scale of CoreWeave, Alex needs to work harder, but I'm still very positive about GMI's prospects.
Okay, we'll open for one last question. Okay, all right. Thank you everyone for coming to discuss on sovereign AI.
Thank you.